The gavel echoed like a death knell. Tomorrow at dawn, he would be gone. But just as silence swallowed the courtroom, his K-9 partner, mute for months, rose slowly and did the impossible. What followed wasn't just justice. It was truth, barking louder than any lie. Sergeant Daniel Reeves sat motionless in his wheelchair, his spine shattered by an IED in Kandahar. Once hailed as the bravest in his battalion, credited with dragging 12 wounded soldiers through enemy fire during a single ambush, he now faced lethal injection for a crime he didn't commit. Beside him, Rex, his battle-scarred German shepherd, pressed close, amber eyes never leaving his handler's face. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Traitor. Deserves to die. But Rex remembered the man who shared his last bite of rations in the desert, who whispered calm into his ears after nightmares, who never raised his voice in anger. Now, with execution hours away, Daniel stared blankly ahead, hollowed by betrayal. His uniform hung in a closet, his medals gathering dust under a forgotten photo of better days. But Rex still wore his faded service vest, stitched proudly with the words, "Military Working Dog." To the world, Daniel was a monster. To Rex, he was everything. He stood accused of murdering Captain Eli Vance, his commanding officer and closest friend, during a classified night raid that ended in chaos. The prosecution painted a chilling portrait, a broken soldier consumed by rage after being passed over for promotion, turning his weapon on the man he once called mentor. The evidence seemed ironclad. A pistol registered to Daniel, found beside Vance's body. A blurred helmet cam still showing a figure in Daniel's gear raising a sidearm. And the sworn testimony of Lieutenant Mark Doyle, a calm, composed officer with a spotless record, who claimed he saw Daniel fire the fatal shot in cold blood. Daniel never spoke in his defense. He knew the truth wouldn't survive courtroom logic or public opinion. In reality, Doyle had panicked during the ambush, fired wildly in the dark, and struck Vance by accident. Terrified of court-martial and dishonorable discharge, he planted Daniel's gun, erased Com's logs, and spun a story no one would question, especially not about a paralyzed, grieving soldier with no one left to vouch for him. When the jury delivered their guilty verdict and the judge sentenced him to death, Daniel simply closed his eyes. Rex let out a low, mournful whine that echoed through the stunned silence like a requiem no one heard. That night, in the cold concrete cell, Daniel stared at the flickering bulb overhead, counting the minutes until sunrise. The silence was thick, heavy, alive with dread. Outside, crickets sang a lullaby for the condemned. Rex lay near the bars, ears twitching at every distant footstep. Then, just past midnight, the dog rose. He sniffed the air, paced once, then fixated on a cardboard folder left on the guard's small metal desk, labeled Final Evidence Review, Do Not Remove. Rex pawed at it, whining low in his throat. "What is it, boy?" Daniel murmured, too weary for hope. But Rex persisted, nudging the folder with his nose until it slid off the table, scattering papers across the floor. Among them, a close-up forensic photo of the murder weapon's serial number, partially scratched out but still legible under enhanced light. Beneath it, a maintenance log signed by Doyle himself. Sidearm number 738 reported lost during field exercise on June 12th. Daniel's breath caught. That number, it matched Doyle's issued weapon, not his. His hands trembled as he clutched Rex's fur. "You remembered his scent on that gun," he whispered, tears burning his eyes. He pounded on the cell door, shouting for the warden, but no one came. Dawn arrived like a thief, stealing what little time remained. Morning light poured through the high-arched windows as Daniel was wheeled into the packed courtroom for the final confirmation hearing. Reporters scribbled furiously in notepads. Veterans in dress blues stood along the back wall, arms crossed, faces grim. Spectators leaned forward, hungry for the final chapter of a fallen hero's tragedy. The judge adjusted his glasses, voice cold and final. "All appeals have been exhausted. The sentence stands. Execution at 0600 hours. Daniel lowered his head, whispering to Rex, "It's okay, buddy. They'll never understand." But Rex's muscles tensed. His gaze locked not on the judge, but on Lieutenant Doyle, seated calmly in the witness stand, adjusting his cufflinks with a faint, satisfied smirk. Then, without warning, Rex barked, once, twice, sharp, urgent, commanding. The room flinched. "Control that dog," the prosecutor snapped. "Remove him immediately." But Rex lunged forward, straining against his leash, eyes blazing at Doyle like twin coals of unspoken truth. As bailiffs moved in, something small and metallic clattered from a hidden compartment in Rex's collar. A military dog tag, modified to hold a micro-memory chip. It spun across the marble floor and came to rest near Daniel's chair. The judge frowned. "What is this?" A court clerk picked it up, inserted it into a laptop, and gasped. On screen, Doyle's voice, clear and chilling. "Just say Cole did it. No one will question a dead hero. And if he talks, well, he won't." Doyle's face drained of color. Sweat beaded on his temple. Rex growled low, never breaking eye contact. In that instant, the entire room knew. Doyle collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "It was me. I killed Vance. I blamed Daniel because he couldn't walk, couldn't fight back. I was scared. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Jurors stood in disbelief. The prosecutor covered her mouth, eyes wide with horror. But the judge did something no one expected. He rose slowly, removed his glasses, and stepped down from a bench. He walked past the weeping lieutenant, past the stunned jury, and stopped before Rex. Then quietly the judge sank to one knee. Tears streamed down his wrinkled cheeks as he placed a trembling hand on the dog's head. "Forgive us," he whispered, voice breaking. "We stopped listening to the only one who knew." Daniel watched, stunned, as the man who had condemned him to die now bowed in humility to the creature who had saved him. Rex leaned forward, pressing his wet nose gently into the judge's palm. Not in triumph, but in quiet understanding, a gesture of peace from a heart that never lied. The courtroom fell utterly silent, save for the soft click of cameras capturing a moment that would echo through history. Weeks later, the footage went viral across every continent. K9 hero exonates wrongly convicted soldier. News outlets called it the day justice barked. Daniel's rank was fully restored. His medals were returned in a ceremony at the Pentagon, attended by generals, diplomats, and grateful citizens who now saw him not as a traitor, but as a symbol of resilience. And Rex? He was awarded the newly created Medal of Valor, the first ever given to a military working dog, with a citation that read, "For unwavering loyalty, extraordinary perception, and the courage to speak truth when humanity stayed silent." Schools invited them to speak. Children wrote letters addressed simply to Hero Dog. But more than fame, something deeper returned: faith. People began to look at rescue animals, not as pets, but as silent guardians of truth, empathy, and second chances. Standing before a crowd one evening beneath a setting sun, Daniel placed a hand on Rex's back and said softly, "Justice didn't save me. Loyalty did, because a dog doesn't listen to lies. He listens to hearts. And sometimes that's the only voice that matters." If this story moved you, please hit like, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Rescue Tales. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I read every single one. Because stories like this, they only live if we pass them on. And maybe, just maybe, your dog is trying to tell you something too.